Hello, everyone. Thank you to the organizers for making this space a multilingual space. This is, please everyone select your preferred language. If you are joining us from your computers, you will see the little globe. Please select your language. If you are joining us from your cell phone or your tablets, please go to the three little dots or more. There you will find language interpretation. Select your language, and please don't forget to press done. Buenos días o buenas tardes. Gracias a los organizadores por hacer de este un evento multilingüe. Todas las personas tienen que seleccionar su idioma. Si nos acompañan desde sus computadoras, pueden ir a la parte de abajo de su pantalla, van a ver el mundo. Allí pueden seleccionar su idioma preferido. Si nos están acompañando desde sus tabletas o teléfonos, vayan a los 3 puntitos donde dice más. Allí van a encontrar interpretación de idiomas. Seleccionan su idioma y no olviden presionar listo. Voy a poner las instrucciones en esta pantalla. Si tienen un problema con el idioma, por favor, no sufran en silencio. Déjenlo saber en español. En español o en inglés. So please, I will be pasting the instructions also in the chat. If you have any problem with the interpretation, please do let us know, and do not suffer in silence, and let us know in the chat, and we will try to fix the problem. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Susana. Hello, everyone. I would like to welcome you to today's first plenary session, Centering Indigeneity to Build Healing Across Communities, part of G4GC's virtual convening, Reclamation and Reciprocity, Harvesting Just and Liberated Futures for Girls, Femmes, and Gender-Expansive Youth of Color. My name is Rana Lapine. I am Mohawk, and I am the fund manager of the New Songs Rising Initiative. The New Songs Rising Initiative is a partnership between G4GC and the 7th Generation Fund for Indigenous Peoples. Through this work, we support projects led by and centering Indigenous girls, femmes, and two-spirit and gender-expansive young people. Before we get started, I just want to give a few reminders. This is a bilingual session. Please remember to speak slowly to accommodate our phenomenal translators. Healing is a complicated, varied, and sacred practice. As Indigenous people, we practice healing in many ways. We heal our communities, we heal our elders, we heal our land and all that lives within it, we heal our youth, we heal ourselves, and we even heal our enemies. I want to explicitly note that there are many components of healing work that are not appropriate to be shared outside of community. G4GC respects this, and as such, we will do our best to let you know if a question within the question and answer segment cannot be answered. Finally, I want to acknowledge that healing often involves heavy, difficult topics. I would like to bring us together with 2 deep breaths before our amazing moderator begins our conversation. We're going to breathe together for 4 seconds, hold for 2, and breathe out for 6. I'll count that time, and you're welcome to close your eyes or soften your gaze if you're comfortable. So we're going to breathe in for 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold that for 1 more second. And then we're going to slowly breathe out for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll do that 1 more time. So breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold that 1 more second, and out slowly for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Nyawa. Lujane, I'll pass this over to you.
Thank you so much, Rana, and thank you all for being here today. It's so wonderful to be here. And I'm going to go ahead and start off with introductions and introduce who I am, and then pass it off to the panelists to introduce themselves and where they're coming from. So my name is Lujane Alsale. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm based in Oakland, also known as Ohlone. It's Ohlone lands in the Bay Area in California. And I'm a member of the Palestinian Feminist Collective, which is a group of Arab and Palestinian women and feminists fighting for the ending the occupation in Palestine, and also amplifying the role in feminism in colonialism within Palestine. And I'm just so grateful to be here today with you all. A little bit more about me. I also work for an environmental justice organization called Communities for a Better Environment here in Oakland. I work as the East Oakland Clean Air Project coordinator, and my work primarily focuses on how to not only reduce emissions in East Oakland, but also improve the quality of life for everyone in the community. And I'll go ahead and pass it off to Melissa to introduce herself and talk about where she comes from and what she does as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It is fabulous to be here at this wonderful event. Anine, my name is Melissa Spence. I am Anishinaabe, or Ojibwe is the English translation of that. I was born and raised on my traditional territory in what is now known as Canada, or Manitoba, Treaty 1. I am a professional broadcaster, producer, and voiceover artist. I got my start in Indigenous media almost 15 years ago, working in commercial radio, compiling playlists that serve the Indigenous community, working with the Indigenous Music Countdown, which went on to be the very first of its kind to land on a platform like Sirius XM. So my passion is music. I contribute to Indigenous Vision these days after spending almost a decade in Indigenous media in Canada. I eventually relocated to here in the US. I now am based out of Las Vegas, or Southern Paiute land. And I'm here representing Indigenous Vision. We're an educational nonprofit. We are based in Montana and Arizona and Las Vegas. And we are a female-led Indigenous collective of professionals. We do things like land mapping, Indigenous Vision music, which is spotlighting Indigenous artists from all across Turtle Island. Our slogan is all genres, all directions. We've also got the Indigenous Vision podcast that is going to be spotlighted next month for Native American / Indigenous Heritage Month. So we're pretty excited about that. And we also do cultural humility training, which is our way of contributing and trying to dismantle and disrupt the white supremacist structures that we are navigating through as we, as a team, process our colonialism. And I'm really glad to be here. I'm filling in for the executive director of Indigenous Vision, Suta Callinglast, and it is an absolute honor to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Melissa. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Maria to introduce herself to the group.
Sí, muchas gracias por el tiempo y también por la oportunidad que me han dado. Soy María Xcoy, hablo en idioma quiché, soy indígena y vengo allá en una aldea quiché, departamento de Huehuetenango, Guatemala. Actualmente estoy en Ohio. Soy promotora de parte de Liga Maya Internacional. Y muchas gracias por el espacio. Gracias.
Thank you so much, Maria. And I'll go ahead and pass it off to Tony to introduce herself as well.
Aloha, everyone. It is an honor and a privilege to be here with everyone. My name is Tony Bisson, and I come to you from Honolulu, Hawaii, on the island of Oahu, our mauna is, my mauna is Ka'ala, which is a reference to what is the mountain or place we come from. I am the executive director of an organization called the Pu'a Foundation, and that's who I'm representing as part of this talk. And the three questions that for our introduction section was, who are you? What we do. So a little bit about our Pu'a Foundation. We are a nonprofit, a native nonprofit here in Hawaii, and we focus on trauma healing and justice. We focus on women and girls that are justice involved, and we work towards really addressing the issue related to the overrepresentation of Native Hawaiians incarcerated. I think the last question about introductions that I'd like to share is what brought me to this work. And simply, I would say it is a calling to serve our community, our family. I happen to be an attorney by background. And the reason I went to law school at the time, it was really to serve the Hawaiian community. Again, thank you for allowing this time. And I look forward to this session together. Mahalo.
Thank you so much, Tony. Great to see you. And I'll go ahead and ask this first question to everyone in the panel. So the first question is, how have youth been involved in encouraging healing either within your community or across others?
Okay, go ahead, Melissa, sorry.
Thank you. That question is beautiful. How have I been involved in encouraging healing within the community or across others? What I like to focus on is music. I've been passionate about music my entire life, which is what led me essentially to becoming a radio DJ in my 20s, and that it morphed into expanding and learning and growing with artists and watching artists, specifically Indigenous artists, tell their stories through music and share their experiences from coast to coast to coast here on Turtle Island. So I always like to remind people that music is so necessary in our healing journey. It is so important to slow down and take that time to enjoy music, go out and experience live music, tell the stories through the music, and receive the messages through the music. I think with a lot of our processing of my experience, processing the colonialism and the intergenerational traumas, music has been a real medicine for me. And it's been absolutely the foundation of my healing journey. And I like to tell people that it's really important for us to celebrate as we're going along this journey. And for me, that's what music is. And in my nation, celebrating it's a really big part of being alive. So that's what I do. I share the music as much as I can and try to uplift as many voices as I can.
Thank you so much, Melissa. I really appreciate it. And I'll open it up to, Maria, Tony, if you'd like to share.
Sí, muchas gracias. Bueno, lo más importante en este concepto de sanación es nuestros idiomas. Como saben, en Guatemala hay 22 idiomas mayas y también nuestras vestimentas. Eso nos ayuda, como estaba mencionando hace rato, que estoy fuera de mi país donde yo salí. Entonces, veo que ahora tenemos una conexión cuando salgo y llego con la comunidad, entonces hablamos de nuestros idiomas, nuestras culturas, entonces nos da esa conexión. Antes, hace 8 años, cuando yo llegué aquí, las personas, la comunidad tenía miedo de hablar, siempre era español y la mayoría no hablaban en español, entonces fue muy difícil, pero durante el tiempo va avanzando. Ahora veo que la mayoría de los jóvenes que apenas llegaron ya no tienen miedo de decir que es indígena, que es ixil o quiché. Entonces es muy bonito ver este cambio muy grande. Entonces eso veo y me siento muy feliz, y también como me gustaría que la nueva generación, por ejemplo mi hijo, yo hablo en quiché, mi esposo habla en en quiché y xil, y para mi hijo me gustaría que él aprendiera esos idiomas para no perder nuestra identidad. Muchas gracias.
I would echo, aloha, this is Tony again. I would echo beautifully said, Melissa and Maria. Here in Hawaii, I think one of the things that we do around this healing work, especially in the juvenile justice system or the adult criminal justice system, is this notion of transforming from trauma. And what Melissa said, it is sharing our song, our chants. It is how do you transform, and it's engaging in offering experiential opportunities. So a quick example has to do with the work that we're doing at the youth facility around girls, and just a shout out to the kinds of efforts that are happening in Hawaii. We really actually, at this point, there is one girl in our youth facility, a young girl, which is Hawaii's context where if you are involved in the juvenile justice system, that's where you reside. But for the most part, we have 0 girls who are incarcerated, and it's been a long journey. But how do we transform from trauma? How do we heal? It is understanding where we come from, who we are, embracing our language, singing our songs, and so experiencing those things also in the context of community and family. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate just your insight and learning more about, how youth have been involved in healing. And I'd love to hear, as a more specific question for you all too, what role has healing played in your work and community? And I know that you've touched on this in your previous responses, but if there's anything else that you'd want to add about specifics around how healing has played in your work and your role in your community.
Healing has, I guess, the healing in my work, in my community, it's just been really incredible to reconnect. I'm someone who was raised by 2 60 scoops, which means my parents are both adopted out of their biological families and raised in a very non-Indigenous way. So for me to be born in that environment, reconnecting with my culture through Indigenous media like broadcasting, podcasting, television, was really fundamental with my healing journey. So when it came to my work, I wanted to make sure that I always put the stamp on that, yes, I'm an Indigenous broadcaster, I'm a female broadcaster, I'm the matriarch of my family. And I always made sure to let people know that, just that my voice was here and that there was a space for me. I found myself in a lot of places where I wasn't even welcomed at times, but I always stood my ground and made sure that I stayed connected to my community regardless of where I traveled. And healing is in my work, in my community, it's just really uplifted my soul. I mean, I'm 15 years into this journey now and connecting with other nations like the Blackfeet tribe, whom I worked with in Indigenous Vision, and the Hopi tribe, and kind of uniting as others are also connecting to their culture. It's really been just incredible to venture into Indigenous media and meet others like myself who are also reconnecting. So that's been huge for my healing.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Yeah, and I'd love to open it up to Maria and Tony too, if you have anything to share.
Sí, muchas gracias. También, como dijo Melissa, al igual me gustaría hablar un poco de mi experiencia. Como dije, apenas llegué 8 años aquí, luego llegué con un cuñado mío, el esposo de mi hermana. Entonces él llegó aquí menor de edad, era un joven. Entonces él llegó con personas que solo hablaban en español. Entonces él dejó su idioma por el racismo que sufría después de que nosotros llegábamos. Él siempre nos decía que solo hablábamos en español para ir a comer o salir donde hay muchas personas. Entonces yo llegué con una hermanita, entonces yo nunca dejé de hablar en quiché y mi hermanita siempre hablábamos y vi la gran diferencia. Mi sobrinita tenía 5 años ahí, en ese entonces ella solo hablaba español. Ella se interesó más en nuestro idioma y ella ahora en la actualidad comprende mucho el quiché, solo puede hablar un poquito, pero sí, mi cuñado ahora también, él empezó a hablar con mis otros sobrinitos en quiché, lo cual fue una sanación muy grande para mí. Vi la sanación, él se cambió, entonces ahora en la comunidad están haciendo eso ahora, están aportando sus vestimenta, haciendo sus culturas aquí a pesar de que no están en sus tierras, entonces es muy bonito ver eso. Muchas gracias.
Yeah, I would say with respect to healing, it's a journey in our community. It's a very experiential thing. You know, we all as human beings need connection, and, you know, our language and our culture and shoulder to shoulder, the kinds of sharing our joys, sharing our struggles. For us in Hawaii, it is about community. It is about language, knowing our chants, knowing our history, knowing where we came from, and then really kind of laying out steps as to how each of us relate to our families, relate to each other. How do we respond to the struggles? And the historical aspect of the trauma that we talk about, historical trauma, community trauma, individual trauma. What I find in the work that we do, because the question always is, why is there an overrepresentation of Native Hawaiians incarcerated? And we actually can trace it back to some of our historical aspects. A quick plug about Hawaii's history is that we're an independent country, and our queen was actually imprisoned in her palace at the time there was an overthrow in 1893. And we teach that in the prison, and so that we say her name, and we recognize her struggle. But there's a trajectory of why consistently now there is a overrepresentation. So we have to address that. I'll bring our queen Queen Liliuokalani. We bring her into this room. She sang, she wrote poetry. She prayed in a way that addressed the kind of struggles, yet provided the example of forgiveness and moving forward. So she's an inspiration. Just a little bit about us. Thank you so much, Jane.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. And I have a more specific question that I wanted to ask Maria. And you know, so much of our healing is rooted in our traditional relationships with land and space. And as someone who's experienced forced migration and displacement from your homeland of Guatemala, I would love to hear from you about what healing looks like for communities and people that are denied access to their homelands.
Sí, muchas gracias, Luján. Sí, de hecho, es muy triste ver eso, viendo a niños no acompañados como yo sufrí, lo viví, a pesar de cuando estaba allá en mi lugar. Sufrí muchas discriminación, iba en la escuela y los maestros eran latinos, hablaban solo español, y como nosotros hablábamos en nuestros idiomas y ellos nos pegaban porque nosotros no hablábamos en español, fue muy difícil y muchos niños ya no querían ir allá, y la escuela es una oportunidad para avanzar, pero ellos nos quitaron esa oportunidad. Es una de las razones, y también por el conflicto que pasó hace años, entonces aún está ahí, entonces muchos jóvenes están saliendo, entonces, y llegar aquí en otro lugar donde van a buscar otra nueva oportunidad, y es difícil, pero lo bueno es que nosotros estábamos muy conectados a la naturaleza, donde nos sana, y también mis abuelos, mis padres siempre antes hablaban sobre el maíz es sagrado, la abuela luna, el abuelo sol, la madre tierra. Entonces, yo no entendía muy bien eso hasta cuando Liga Maya creó un espacio el año pasado, no, este año, que el 22, uno de los fundadores, el doctor Matul, habló un poco de nuestras historias que yo no había escuchado antes. En las escuelas nunca aprendí de mi historia, si yo era indígena o no comprendías mi identidad. Entonces vi aquí en este espacio, me sané completamente. Entonces es lo que a mí me gustaría que mi comunidad hiciera lo mismo, escuchara nuestras historias y así poder avanzar. Como por ejemplo, ahora estamos liderando un proceso. Yo soy una de las promotoras en Liga Maya, haciendo planes específicos para mujeres y niñas. Como estaba contando hace rato que durante mi travesía en México, yo tenía apenas 14 años, entonces en ese camino largo, a mí me bajó la menstruación por primera vez. Yo no hablaba español y yo no podía pedir mis toallas sanitarias a nadie, entonces vi la gran necesidad. Y también las mujeres que llegan aquí, a veces muchachas, mujeres, niñas, llegan con padres, primos o tíos, no saben o no pueden preguntar, necesito esto, es algo muy difícil, pero lo bueno es que Liga Maya está luchando y también prohibiendo dar ayuda. Entonces es lindo poder ver que la misma comunidad se está levantando y luchando para poder avanzar y también sanar todas las heridas que hemos pasado. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much, Maria. Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing about that and hearing more. And I'd love to also ask, I'm going to ask 2 questions before opening it up to Q&A for everyone here. But my second question is for Tony. And I would love to learn more about, given your work in childcare and juvenile systems, how do you see healing practices as addressing multiple layers of intergenerational trauma? And there's both the trauma that occurs within our families and communities, and also the trauma that comes from, as you had talked about, to colonialism and imperialism that has impacted Hawaii directly.
Thank you so much for the great question. And it's a packed one. But, when we were preparing for this, can everybody hear me okay? I'm really trying to, we're far away in Hawaii, so I'll just project my voice a little higher. So in response to the question, especially the theme of what we're talking about, trauma, healing, justice for our young girls, for our community, for our women, for our families, I thought we together would experience some of the practices that we do. So I wrote this song and we teach it in the prison. We send it to our families. But this is an example of how we experientially try to heal. And it goes like this. It's called Hau'oli Au He Hawaii Au. And it's a mele and a chant and a song. And it's in English and Hawaiian, which I'll do. But I hope it gives us an example of how we utilize these healing techniques and share it and do it together. Because once you say it, you feel it, you breathe it in, and it brings in our ancestors, our gratitude, and things like that. So bear with me. Your grace is appreciated. So it goes like this. Meka ha'ola o e pu'a. Noho me kanani a me I kaika hau'oli au He Hawaii au, haoli au. He Hawaii au. No na pua o ka aina, wala loko I ke aloha, haoli au. He Hawaii au, haoli au. He Hawaii au. Mahalo ke akua, mahalo e na kupuna, haoli au. He Hawaii au, haoli au. He Hawaii au, me ke aloha ko mau ohana. E hanau, ho makakako, haoli au. He Hawaii au, haoli au. He Hawaii au, haoli au. He Hawaii au. Thank you. And in English, what I'm singing about really speaks to the first pauku, or the first verse talks about to be fed with the breath of life, to be happy and strong. I am happy, I am Hawaii. I am happy, I am Hawaii. For the people of this land, love gives life from within. I am happy, I am Hawaii. I am happy, I am Hawaii. Gratitude to God, gratitude to our ancestors. I am happy, I am Hawaii. Me ke aloha, with love from your ohana. Let us start again a new birth. Thank you for your grace and allowing me to share that. This was actually developed as a form of how we respond to trauma and the work that we do. You know, the pandemic and all of these kinds of things was happening. And I wrote this song to say, let's stay in the game. It's not about being happy and, you know, girls in grass shacks and grass skirts and, you know, being happy in life all the time. However, when we share this with our girls, when we share this in the women's prison, the girls have really embraced this. We sing it together, we clap. There is a conscious difference in one's attitude and feeling. In fact, some of our women on this work line, this is actually a song that you can sing, but we also dance hula with this. So there's movement to expressing what that story is. Why is that important? And how do we address the kinds of issues that are systems related in the juvenile justice system, in the criminal justice system? The bottom line for us is, how do we empower our women, our girls, to look inside into the strength that they have when we sing, when we chant, when we celebrate, when we hula? It is absolutely 100% the way in which we respond to that. So thank you for letting me share that.
Thank you so much, Tony. Yeah, just so beautiful and powerful. I really appreciate you sharing. And I'm going to go ahead and pass along one more question before opening it up to all of you to ask your questions. But this question is for Melissa. And so much of your work with Indigenous Vision includes building deep relationships with Indigenous people from other communities across North America, Turtle Islands. And you spoke to that in your introduction, and I'd love to hear more about how that connection has come through in your work.
I love that question because I'm someone who likes to wander. I like to visit other nations. It's just always been in my nature to move through the world and experience as many people as I can. In our cultural humility teachings, we like to really focus on the fact that we are all distinct people. We all have our uniqueness, and just to absorb the essence of each person is such a privilege whenever I'm doing this work, whether it be in cultural humility trainings, whether it be with Indigenous Vision music, listening to artists from all other nations telling their stories, whether it be in their language, in their style of genre. It could be something like hip hop, it could be rock, folk. But my favorite part about connecting is just being my authentic self. It is something that in my journey, I kind of struggled to do. I found myself when I was moving through these, big commercial radio entities that I was watering down the Indigenous side of myself. So in the past decade or so, I've really come into my my authentic self. And that's really how I connect with other communities. And it's important to vocalize the journey that we have been going on. It's so important. I mean, we can keep our stories fluffy, or we can keep it real. And my motto has always been to keep it extremely real. I talk very candidly about my addiction problems that I've overcome, how I'm still struggling with addiction, how my alcohol-free journey began 3 years ago. I just celebrated that milestone. So I keep it very authentic and real whenever I'm talking on the podcast, whether I'm introducing an artist who is also keeping it real in their songs with their lyrics. We process in so many different ways. There are so many different ways to be an Indigenous person, is what I've learned over the years. So it's really a great experience to see others and to kind of normalize that journey is essentially what I'm trying to do. And being candid and being open and sharing my experience very openly on public platforms like podcasting or the radio, because I know that there are young people out there who might not want to share or might even learn something from me, that it's okay to be, to come out of an addiction. It's okay to be struggling with those kinds of things. Or if you have imposter syndrome, which is something that I still struggle with today. So I keep it extremely authentic with people. And I think they pick up on that, and that I become like a safe person. And I find that when I'm connecting with people, they're a lot more, they're not as guarded. And I come off as a safe person when you're, at least in my experience, just being your true self. So that's how I connect.
Thank you so much, Melissa. And thank you all, Tony, Maria, Melissa, just for your time and for sharing personal stories and songs. And really loved having the chance to speak with you all. And I'm going to go ahead and open it up to others that are attending this panel to ask their questions. So you're welcome to ask any questions in the chat. And I can go ahead and read those off if that's okay. And yeah, we can open it up to all of you if you have questions. Awesome. And I don't know that I see where the questions are. Oh, there we go. I see one question. I'll go ahead and read this one off. Does organizing and power building look different in Indigenous communities? And if yes, how so?
I'll take a stab, girls. What do you think? Or Melissa or Maria, what do you guys think?
Okay. You go ahead, Tony.
Okay. Building power. I think there's some fundamental aspects to how we address the organizing aspect of community. But I think Melissa said it really well. The authenticity of the individual working shoulder to shoulder, really demonstrating love, compassion, authenticity, transparency, coming from a trauma-informed approach. This is kind of be the change you want to see in the world. And I think the groundswell of all of it and the vibration of the love upon which we want to love our earth, love each other, love our families, can resonate. And that to me is the power building aspect and the strategy. And I don't want to sound airy-fairy, sorry, but it is an actual, in Hawaiian, the word is mana. It's called mana. And it is an energy, and to whatever extent it can be felt, it can be experienced, it can be demonstrated. And it is based on this love of aloha, which means that love I refer to. So thanks for letting me share. Melissa, what do you think? Maria, what do you guys think?
Sí, muchas gracias por el espacio. Sí, igual como dijo Tony, estoy completamente de acuerdo. También estar en conjunto con la comunidad, también crecer con la nueva generación. Es muy bonito también conectarse a nuestra cultura y también ver cómo crecer en otro lugar y llevar nuestra cultura, nuestra vestimenta. Se ve muy bonito para mí. Muchas gracias.
Organizing and power building, does it look different in Indigenous communities? as someone who's worked in a festival that was Indigenous run, it was definitely different from a non-Indigenous festival. That was my experience with organizing. I think that we take a slower approach when it comes to organizing, and we tend to focus, like I had said earlier, on the individual and the unique experiences and gifts that we each bring to whatever event that we are creating. I think it's really focused on our gifts and how we can share the gifts.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. And I have another question for you all from the audience about why is preserving Indigenous ways of being so important for girls, gender expansive, and two-spirit youth who have been forcibly removed or displaced from their communities? And just if you need some time to think more about that.
I'll give it a stab. I think what it is, why it's important, is the grounding aspect of who you are, where you come from. There's a DNA aspect to your family, your culture, thousands of years. It is not about being in a place because you could be uprooted and taken somewhere else, but you are who you are. And the importance of understanding who you are, your history, your language, your culture, your family, your ancestors, it's really grounded. And that to the extent that you gain your power, your personal power from that. And I'll give a quick example. I was part of a World Oli movement conference last weekend, and some of the girls who were about 17, 18, and 19 who were learning how to chant in the Hawaiian language, they talked about their struggles. They talked about their struggles, their anxieties, about heartbreak, and the loving space of ancestors that were brought into the room. And I mean that because we say who they are. They're in the space, as well as elders and family, and you create that space of being able to experience what that is. Why is that important for our young girls? It goes to feed to the heart of who they are, and not to be somebody else, but that's a way in which I believe that it could be helpful, it could be powerful, it could help our young girls. Thank you.
Sí, muchas gracias. Es una pregunta interesante. De hecho, cuando yo crecí, yo llegué aquí, entonces estaba bien insegura, no sabía quién era, de qué identidad era. Entonces, como dije aquella vez, de que si perteneces a un grupo etnia, y yo no sabía qué era eso, entonces Liga Maya creó un espacio, ya indagué más en la información, busqué, entonces ahora me siento más segura, y lo más fundamental es ir y saber tu historia, saber quién eres, y también crear espacios con los abuelos, mamás. Es muy bonito sentir eso y ver quién eres, de dónde vienes. Entonces eso te hace segura, y también ver seguir para poder seguir adelante, porque si dejamos como mi cultura es conectarse a la naturaleza, entonces eso soy yo, es como nosotros crecimos, entonces eso es lo que vamos a hacer en adelante. Muchas gracias.
I think it's so important to preserve our Indigenous ways, because for the past few generations, at least in my family, we were literally almost erased and not able to practice our Indigenous ways. My mother was an Ojibwe speaker when she was born, but after being removed from her family and put into foster care, she lost her language, she lost her spirituality. And she can still understand the language, she just can no longer speak it. So to preserve our Indigenous ways is so important, to regain everything that was lost and taken against our will. And it's so important to me because moving forward, I'm going to be influencing the next generations and so on and so forth. So to vocalize these types of things is extremely important into practice. I know that in the Ojibwe Anishinaabe way, we have 7 teachings, which is sort of like a guideline on how to move through the world. And previous to colonization, or previous before colonization, this was how we moved around the world. And it was using 7 teachings of wisdom, love, respect, bravery, honesty, humility, and truth. So by encompassing all of those in everything that you do, you will definitely live the true Anishinaabe way. In fact, the Anishinaabe term means the good people. And our focus was just to live a good life with this blessing of life that we have on this beautiful planet that we are a part of. So it's so important to preserve this Indigenous way so that we can continue to reclaim and reconcile what was taken from us so that we can actually live good lives. Because unfortunately, I'm the first generation out of the past 5 that has the freedom to do all the things that I want to do, to follow my dreams, to accomplish my goals. So it's so important to preserve that so that it will, fold over again and again in the next generations.
So I'm actually going to ask the next question because it's specifically for Lujane. And I do want to know also, I know we're a little bit at time here. So we are going to keep going about 5 or 10 more minutes, but I just wanted to note that. So Lujane, this question is for you. Many people don't realize that Palestinian people are Indigenous. What is important for all of us to remember in that, especially in supporting liberation work?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. And I think I just wanted to start off by saying that, settler colonialism in the United States, like each case of settler colonialism is unique, and Indigenous peoples across the world have been impacted in different ways. And at the same time, there's so much similarities between what's happening in Palestine, say what's happened in Hawaii, what's continuing to happen in Hawaii and North America. And I think for me, one thing growing up, I remember once, this was in high school, someone asked me like what I was, because I'm kind of, I think, like ambiguous. And when I said I was Palestinian, the student responded, but they don't exist. And so I think that there's this erasure of Palestinians in a similar way that Indigenous and Native people around the world, their identities have been erased, or they're attempting to erase, our identities and our culture. And I think another similarity too is, I think, when Zionism started to take place, there was also this notion that Palestine was this deserted land that was, not fertile, like all of these justifications to colonize Palestine. In a similar way that I also think native land in the United States and across the world, it's the same kind of rhetoric and narrative around our land. And I think that as I've, better understood my identity as a Palestinian, I've seen a lot of similarities between our struggles and also the struggle of Native and Indigenous people across the world. And I just think it's so important for us to continue to not only just, build solidarity, but also support each other in a united front and struggle. And so special and grateful to be here with all of you and learn from your experiences and, continue to build our connections and relationships and creating a better world. So thank you all so much. And I think I'll go ahead and just ask, I know we have 5 minutes remaining, and I'll go ahead and ask the last question for you all, if you could share. But if you could tell young people one thing about accessing healing in their community, what would that be?
I would say, don't rush, don't chase anybody, and just be your authentic self. Feel it all, let it happen. I think a lot of people or at least I was scared of the dark parts of myself. But once I faced them and embraced them, I blew through that like a hurricane. So embrace it and do not rush. Let it take time and follow your heart.
Sí, bueno, yo diría que la juventud es valorar su identidad maya, llevar su cultura donde quiera, también su idioma y también hablar con los abuelos, sus padres, porque ellos tienen más sabiduría, saben más de nuestras culturas. Es todo. Muchas gracias.
That's a great question. Here's what I learned from, I have a 16-year-old and a 19-year-old. And the line is that we talk about is you be you. You know, and like Melissa said, like your authentic self. What I've learned from our last 4 girls in the Hawaii Youth Correctional Facility, they were about, we talked about that. You be you, and you have the confidence within what that is. So I would say that to our young people, our young girls. And I know it's kind of sounds, well, what does that mean? You can dig deep and you feel it, and you have to really lean into that power of self and of beauty. And my 18-year-old like, Mom, you be you. And I'm like, okay, Trinity, you be you. Thanks.
That's so sweet. Yeah, thank you all so much. Really had such a great time meeting you all, and appreciate also all the questions from the audience too. Just really insightful questions, and appreciate you all being here. And I hope you have a great rest of your Thursday. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much to our beautiful panel. Thank you, Luciane, for that expert moderation. I'm just going to put this survey link into the chat if anyone would like to answer that about their time. And I just can't thank people enough for everything you all brought to the session. Yamaboa.
Thank you.